Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Okay, alright, once again, thanks a lot for coming, guys. Thank you, Nishal, thanks for coming and having this time with us. Really appreciate it. So, how we do it with Startup Grind, we do is, it's a standard format worldwide. What we do is, we keep 1 hour in the beginning for interaction for all the participants, then 1 hour is for fireside chat and Q&A, and then another hour when you can hang out and people can ask you questions if they have any, and then you can share your stories. So we do this, it's a pretty standard worldwide, so it's very nice. And this is our 5th event, Startup Grind Bangalore, so yay. And yes, so usually the first question which I ask to all my guests is how did you start? Where did you start? When did you start? Let's go back to those days, when did you start?
So I started this in 2010.
Okay.
Started as a side project. I was at Burp.com, it's a restaurant review website of India. So while I was working there, I used to be pretty active on Twitter, and that made me start this. And it was like it was a hack to be true. I built it in like 4 days and sent it out to my friends and followers on Twitter, and I also sent it to a few blogs. And fortunately, TechCrunch happened to pick it up.
Oh wow.
And then the first set of users came in, and then it just kept building up after that.
Wow. So usually when TechCrunch picks up something, it breaks, right? That's how it happens. Did it happen?
No, that did not break because the reason I did this because at that time Google had come up with something called as Google App Engine, which is pretty famous right now. So I actually built this to see if I could build something on top of that App Engine. So it was more of a learning for me, and it did not break, so App Engine works.
So how did you get into Burp? Like what did you do before Burp?
Before Burp, I graduated as an engineer from Mangalore. It's a college called Nikkei. And then I was campus placed into 394X. So for 2 years I worked there.
Okay.
There I worked on a recruitment product, which was pretty famous at that time in the recruitment space. And then after that I wanted to join a startup that was just doing something in specific in India. And Burp happened to be the best place for me. So I spoke to them and we had some discussions and I joined them. And it was pretty good joining Burp. The thing is, everyone at Burp was into startups and doing something on your own. Which is why I think now, post Burp, there are like 4 to 5 startups that have come up from employees who used to work at Burp.
Wow.
Which I am one of them.
That is very, very nice culture.
Yeah.
Very good.
So the best thing was, I realized that when you join a startup, the next thing you want to do is your own startup. Okay. So that was a really cool thing.
And they supported you?
Yeah, they everyone. In fact, when I was quitting, my colleague, who's a co-founder of Burp, he told me that you want to do this, you can quit and do it for 6 months. If it doesn't work, we are always here.
Oh wow.
So that was an awesome thing to have.
Yeah, that's just assurance.
Right, whereas when you are working in a company, you are always scared. I put my paper, if this doesn't work, how do I find the next job? So yeah, I sort of had a job security like that.
Wow.
But then that's not the reason why I quit. I wanted to quit because this was growing. And I had to quit. I could not do it part-time anymore. So yeah, that's how it
So
began.
when you say it was growing, how did you define the growth, or what was the parameter?
So for me, I don't know. For me, the parameter was it came to a point where this was making me more money than Burp was giving me.
Okay.
So I said, let's quit. I was making money, and it had reached, I guess, some 300,000 users. So I said, let's quit and let's do this because the money is coming.
Okay.
That was the parameter.
That's a very fair parameter, I should say. And so when did you hire your first employee? Like when was the?
This was like just a month after I quit. I applied for a program called Startup Chili.
Yes.
So I got in there and they were ready to give me $40,000, not take any equity. And I said, 40,000 is a lot for a single guy. So let's get one more guy.
Okay.
So I made one more friend of mine quit, and he joined me. And then we both went to Chile for like 6 months. So that was the initial seed money, I would say, for us to take this to the next level.
Nice. So you stayed in Chile and developed, kept working on the platform?
Yeah. So we kept working. We kept building Just Sample, and at the same time we also said let's build one more product. So we built one more product called as Grab Inbox, which is sort of, it helps you get updates from all the social networks at one place, and you can push out updates to all the social networks.
Okay.
So that was the second product that we were doing, which failed terribly. Not because it wasn't a great product, more because I just realized that with just 2 guys we were trying to do 2 products, which is the wrong thing to do.
Okay.
You should just focus on one product rather than having your hands all over the place. So we said let's stop it. So after like 6 or 8 months of trying to build two things, we stopped it and we just concentrated on just Unfollow. And that really led to the spurt in growth that you see now. But after we quit, and we were close to like 600,000 users on Just Unfollow when we stopped working on the second product. And another say 12 to 15 months, from 700,000 we reached 5 million.
Wow.
So this is the growth that happens when you just focus on one thing. So I think it's important to stay focused.
So when you were working on two products, did you have any mentors who were like poking you, or anyone else who helped you out there?
No, I would recommend having mentors, but we did not have mentors. Though I had a lot of friends who've been into startups, who've been doing it. Whenever I had any problems or anything, I used to consult them. But there was no one mentor as such for us.
No, so because it's very tough for me, I can tell you, that not to work on two things. I mean, and how did you, like, when did you realize that after 6-8 months, what was it that made you realize, you know what, it's not worth it, let's focus on that? What was that one?
I just see, we just had this day when me and my co-founder, we sat down and we said we've been working on two things, and the second thing was surprisingly doing well for the time we spent on it. But then we just realized that we had so many ideas coming up for both the products, and the product roadmap was just falling behind, because there's only so much you can do in the time given to you. So we had to let go of one thing, and we just found immense potential in what Just Unfollow was doing, because Grab-and-Box was pretty new and you have to do the entire marketing all over again, start all over again. So we said let's just stop this, and we decided to stop for like 2 to 3 months to see how this goes, but we never picked it up and went back.
Okay, we will come to marketing, which is a very, very fascinating thing for me, what you guys did. But when did you hire another employee? Did you have any employee, or you just work with that?
So now we are a team of 11. We are adding 1 to 2 employees every month.
Okay.
But our first real employee came after around a year of me quitting my job.
Wow.
So 10 to 11 months we were all just the two of us. But the third employee was also someone who used to work with us.
Okay.
But he joined in as an employee with a stake, of course. Everyone who works right now has some equity in the startup. But yeah, I would say he was the first two employees. That was around 12 months after we quit.
Okay.
And we were 3 until Feb this year. 3 or 4 people until Feb. So we're 11 now. Let's see what we do next year.
So the biggest problem which I think a lot of startups, it's not building the products, maybe building the right product, but getting the users to use your platform or your service or whatever it is. Why don't you talk about marketing aspect of it, or how did you go about from the beginning to 600,000 to 600,000 to 5 million, as you said? What were the steps and how things changed?
Yeah, so there were few, if I was to break it up into stuff.
From the beginning.
From the beginning. So like I said, the TechCrunch thing, that was the first spurt in traffic that we got. So we got the first 5 to 10,000 users on Just Unfollow coming in from TechCrunch.
Okay.
So that was awesome, and whenever you guys get your startups on these popular blogs, you're gonna get the first 5,000 users. Probably a little less right now because there are so many blogs out there. But once you get them, the problem that happens is these people, this wave of traffic that comes in from these blogs, it stops after a while. Maybe the first 3 days or 4 days, and after that there's nothing coming in. Which is why not every app that gets featured on these popular blogs goes on to get a lot of users. So we realized that when we were on TechCrunch, we realized that we are not going to go ahead next after this. So let's do something. And I had this idea that if someone is going to use a product, make sure they spread.
Okay.
So immediately when it was on TechCrunch, I spent around 2 to 3 hours building a small feature that helped people just tweet about this. So when you logged into Just Unfollow, I just showed a text box saying spread about, talk about Just Unfollow on your social network. And I already preloaded it with a tweet saying I'm using justunfollow.com. It's awesome. So I thought not many would click it, but surprisingly a lot of people started clicking it.
Okay.
Which means this first wave of 5,000 users, I could convert it into the next 50,000.
Wait.
So it was, I think at that point, if you ask me, it was this is a stupid idea just to put it out there and ask them to tweet about it. Whereas I see a lot of products right now, when I use them and I want to share it, there's no obvious way to share.
Okay.
You know, if I would have to copy the link, go open Twitter and share it on Twitter, or I might have to share it on Facebook. Why not give a way for me to share it with my friends? So this worked brilliantly for us. So that's how the first wave, was converted into the next. And after doing this, we realized again this when you keep growing, you realize that this is not enough. After 5,000, when you reach 50,000, it's not enough. How do you reach the next stage? So now I keep going to a lot of places, and I've been talking about a strategy that I internally call as ETC. It's E for ego, T for temptation, and C for curiosity. So internally we said let's start using this. And if you go to see, a lot of companies everywhere are using it. It's just that no one has named it.
Okay.
We just happen to understand that this is how at least consumer products should be marketing themselves using the ETC strategy. So what we did first was we realized that we had a lot of data about the kind of people coming into Twitter, their followers and everything. So let's give people an option to tweet about their stats. So what kind of stats? If you were to use Just Unfollow, I would say you have 50,000 followers. Why not tell your friends about it? So we give you an option to tweet about a stat that belongs to you, saying, I just realized I have got 50,000 followers.
Okay.
And when that goes up, we also tell you that link via Just Unfollow is going to go, because we helped you find that info. So this is how we started, and surprisingly everyone started tweeting about this. Now why did that happen is because we were playing with the user's ego. What happens is I gave you an option to show off on Twitter. I told you that you had so many fans, you had so many followers, tell the world about it. And when you're telling the world about it, I said I'm going to add my link to it because I helped you find it. So people did not have any problems with that. And if you go to see, this is what happened with LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure a lot of you must have got an email saying you're in the top 5% or top 4% of LinkedIn, which is nothing but playing with your ego, because now you went out on Twitter and you told about it and your friends tried it out. So this was the perfect thing that we did, and which really helped us get to the next wave, So, and people all over the world are playing with their egos. To say the least, I think Gmail, when it launched, it had this invite thing. Invite was more for, because it gave you the power to give access to someone else on your friend network. You went out and told all your friends who were using Yahoo and were happy about it to start using Gmail, and there was no need to switch. I was happy at having my Yahoo account back then, and some friend of mine said I'm the only one who can give you access to Gmail. So take this invite. So it helped Gmail grow. It helped Pinterest grow that way. So this is what we did with the ego part of consumers, and it's been working well for us after that. So when this happened, I just realized that we had to make money. We are a consumer product. We had to make money to pay for the service. And one way that you do as a consumer app is you raise money. And I don't know for what reason I did not want to raise money back then. I said let's make money instead of raising money. So this is where the second part comes in, temptation. I realized that we were helping people remove the unwanted people on their network, and we were doing it well. So why not start charging it? And we could not just keep a paid product, because you don't do that in consumer. You don't ask people to pay before they use it. So we said let's give them a little bit of Just Unfollow, but not everything. And we started putting limits in what you could do. So Just Unfollow is free to get started. You can use it for free, but after a point there's a limit that comes into the picture. And this is the temptation part. I give you the option to use it, and then I take it away from you. This is how the entire web's freemium model works. If you go to see, freemium is the perfect temptation that happens all over the world. They tell you it's free, you get started, you get using it, and after a point they stop you from using a few more features, and they tell you have to pay for it. So we use this to make money and also to spread more.
Okay.
So this was the second part. Come to the third part. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I mean I have a lot of them actually. So when I am paying for it, still justunfollow.com goes out with the tweets?
No, that's one more way. You can remove the stuff if you pay.
Okay. And a lot of companies, I mean, fail on freemium model, because a lot of people just use the free one. I mean, how was your experience with that?
I think you need to understand that on the web, on freemium as such, there's a conversion rate of between 1 to 3%. And if you think that that 1 to 3% is enough for you to make money, only then should you go with a premium model. For us at scale, 1 to 3% is a lot.
So it's a lot, yeah.
So we consciously decided let's go with premium because this is a mass market thing. This is needed by everyone. Social network is one of the most used. I mean, there are a billion people on social media. So we decided that premium would work for us.
Okay.
But yeah, if you were to build something and you think that there's not a huge market for this, always remember there's always only a small percentage of people who are going to pay you. So then you take a conscious decision whether to keep it free, premium or pay.
When did you start charging your users?
I think we were around six months into building this. The first 6 months I put money from my pocket, and after that I said I can't do it anymore. I have to get money.
But in the beginning you said you were making more money from
And
this.
I quit after 12 months. So after 6 months I
Okay.
put in the paid plan. I was still working part time during that time.
Okay.
And then 6 months since then I made more money than what I was getting.
Okay. Because a lot of people ask this a lot of times that okay, what is that tipping point? When should I quit my job? So that's that kind of you answer it.
One is if you make enough money. The other is if you see potential and you think that you need to go with it. Because you can't always make money. There are a few consumer apps. B2B, it's okay. The first sale itself gets you money. But B2C, you might never make money for the next 1 to 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you should see when you have that curve going up. Now if you go full time, you can make it into that hockey stick growth. Then maybe quit.
Let's come to the third one.
So the third one is curiosity, which I'm pretty sure you have got an email from LinkedIn again saying 10 people viewed your profile.
Yes.
Come over and check who they were. So I keep getting that all the time.
Yes, sir.
So this is like an awesome thing to do. If you have any part of your product that can play with the user's curiosity, don't give it away. I mean, LinkedIn could have sent you an email saying these are the 10 people who viewed your profile, but they don't do that. They never do that.
They'll tell you 1 or 2 names and then they'll like come here and
Come
see.
here and see. So this is what LinkedIn is. This is what we did. What we did is we send out notifications on our mobile app saying 20 people unfollowed you on Twitter and 50 people followed you. So when you hear this, you are bound to come to the website or the app to check it out. So in a day we send out I think around 500,000 notifications every day, and we get a good number of people coming in, opening the app and checking out. Which is why I think more than 50% of our users log in the last 30 days. So out of the 5 million that I say, 2.5 to 3 million people have actually used just in the last 30 days alone. So that is what curiosity does. It's the best way to get users back to your platform. So if you can play with curiosity in the right way, I think you can really get engagement going on your platform. And more engagement means more money and more new customers.
So, I mean, you talked about, I mean, it's brilliant. I'm going to use all of this in my startup, but has any of these things gone bad for you guys, or like did not turn up to be the way, because you said the right way, right? Curiosity,
Right.
playing with curiosity the right way.
Right.
Do you have anything which did not work out?
See, there's nothing in specific that did not work out, but a few things I would rather not do it that I've done. Like one of the things was, we have features for free for users to use,
Okay.
but we said let's try locking a few features. So we locked a couple of features, and we said you have to tweet about this to use this feature. So the way instead of making a payment, you tweet, you pay using a tweet. So that got us good response, but it also led to a lot of people saying that this is what I have to do, and I haven't even tried that feature. So why would I tweet about it to unlock it, whereas I don't know what it does?
Okay.
We eventually removed it, but we had some good response, but I just thought that it was exploiting too much. I mean, don't expect someone to write or talk about it unless they actually use it. So I would not recommend doing something like this.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the stuff that we learned not to do. So yeah.
So you were saying that don't force them until they've
tried, at least
they tried it.
So
And even that, like in the beginning, you said that you are not forcing them. You just give them a text that okay,
Right.
you can tweet about it. It's
Right.
a choice. That worked out well for you.
That worked out well, but like I said, you get greedy after a while, right? So it's not going to work always. And back then it was probably giving me 1,000 tweets a day, but then 1,000 was not enough after.
Okay, alright, fair enough.
So yes.
Okay, so like Birth has been, not Birth, I'm sorry, Just Unfollow has been around for what, 2.5 years, 3
It's
years?
close to 4 years now. Will be 4 years in Feb.
Wow,
So-
but okay, that
I launched in 2010. One year I was working part time.
Okay,
So I went full time 2.5 years now.
okay. So
Close to 3 years.
let's talk about top 3 things which you, if you go back, you would not do. Like you made a mistake which you think could have, you shouldn't have, or you know, if you have to redo it, you wouldn't.
Like, I think the first most important thing is focus. Like I said, I'm never going to build 2 products until one has really matured out. And I get crazy ideas, my friends get crazy ideas, we sit and say this is going to change the world. But we know what we're doing. And then the next day we forget about that crazy idea and we just stick to what we're doing.
Okay.
Once in a while we get bored, we sort of have a hackathon inside the office, we build a product, we get it out, but then it stays that one day and then we just let go. Because I'm a developer, so it's really easy to envision something, build it, but the thing that we don't realize that it's the most difficult thing to do is marketing. I can build anything I want, but I can't make it go to 1 million or 10 million users. That needs effort. So when we think about ideas and about building, we should think after this what? After you built it, how do you do it? Are you ready to dedicate all your time and all your energy on spreading this thing? If you're not, then don't do it. So I would say don't build multiple products. At least that's how I see it. Just build one thing, build it right. That's how you should go. The second thing I would say is second lesson that we learned doing it. When we started, I'm not very good with design, and so I was good at developing stuff, and building it, and I built it. But we recently redesigned Just Unfollow like around 6 months back.
Yes.
And that was the new design stuff that came out, and we have a very beautiful Android and iPhone app right now. We are going to redesign the web. But when I redesigned it, I just could see this, the shift in the focus and the way people saw Just Unfollow. Suddenly everyone was writing about Just Unfollow, everyone was, happy to use Just Unfollow. Though I never realized that design could, change you so much, change your product so much. I'm not talking about UX. UX has to be good right from day one. I'm talking about the way it looks, even that is important. I just thought UX itself was good. It is killer. It gets you product, it gets you users. But if you want to be spoken about, written about, I think UI is something you have to also give a thought. And a lot of us in India don't really look into UI, including me. So I think you should give some time. I should have done this maybe 2 years ago. Instead of doing it 6 months ago. So that is one more. The third thing, I think the most important thing is having the right people. You cannot build stuff alone. You have to realize that early, and you have to start looking for people who can help you build it along with you. There's no way you can do everything that a startup needs. And you should not try. You should just let go of a few things, get someone who can join you, who can do it. And you should just concentrate on what you're good at. I think that is more important. So I think these are the 3 lessons I've learned. If I was to just stop everything and start all over again, I would just look at these 3 things. Pick one product, design it well, do it well, and then get some people who know how to spread it or to help you in stuff you're not doing.
So, that was amazing actually, and it's great that you talk about people and hiring the right people. So, what is your strategy? What goes into your mind when you are talking to a new guy or new hire, I should say?
Right.
What are the considerations you make for your startup?
So the first thing we see is, can we hang out with them? We are all friends. The 11 of us, we work together. We are all friends. We see, do we have the same kind of outlook towards life? What do we want to do? The other thing, somehow on Just Unfollow, most of us have built something. Most of us have been entrepreneurs. So maybe not full-time entrepreneurs, but at least trying to be entrepreneurs. So that was a good thing, but you're not always going to find entrepreneurs all everywhere who are ready to jump in. So, but that was one of the criteria. Then I think it's the rapport is more important for us. Are you able to connect, on a non-work base, not just work, just like that as people. So all the 11 people that have joined in, I've actually met them first just to have a casual talk, and we had a conversation that was nothing related to what the startup was, or nothing about selling ourselves to them or anything, just to get to know each other, and then do we start the interview process. So this is how we work.
You have like a criteria that, okay, you know what, spend like at least 3 meetings with them before the...
No, it's just one meeting. Now it's gone to a phone call.
Okay.
But yeah, it used to be in the early days. I used to go and personally meet up, catch up with them, and have a talk an hour or so, and then go back home, think about it, and then send them an email saying, let's start the interview process.
That's awesome actually. So with that, I'm just gonna stop asking questions now, and now it's your turn. You guys can, if you have any questions, you can ask him. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I have a question. Like right now, you spoke about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, right? And also like how you execute a startup and how you started with your startup. So there's an important question here. Like as you said, there are multiple ideas which you might think, and you are always excited. Okay, leave this. I think this is more traction. We should go and try this.
Right.
Right. So, do you think like your current idea is always something which will be successful and which you can make successful, or you think there will be a point when you will realize you should leave your current idea and you should move towards a new idea?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what pivots are for, right? You have to give enough time to your current idea. Don't prematurely let go, and also don't stick with it for such a long time that you realize you wasted all the precious time just going behind something that was not going to work.
So what is the point?
That point is difficult. I think it's for us, the second product, it was 6 months. We gave it 6 months, and we realized there was some target we had set internally. We realized we are not reaching it. So ideally, I think we would have just sat and said, let's just do it for 6 more months and see. But when we started, we decided that in 6 months, if we don't reach this, then we'll rethink about it and probably stop it. Sometimes you have to be like that, just put in that this is going to take 6 months to reach this level, and if you don't reach it, you'll probably change.
And how do you decide this target? Okay, I want to reach these many users in 6 months.
I think we just said let's reach 50,000 or 100,000 back then. We did not. But,
I can add there because there was another.
We had another product, and so we said we'll ride on this and try to see how to make it grow. Yeah, otherwise maybe 50,000 or 100,000 in 6 months may not be a. It's too much, I guess.
Okay. Is that answering your question? Yes.
So when you were working part-time on this and follow, so what was the time which you were investing in this? Like, because balancing both office and this.
Right. So I had to let go of all my friends. I had to let go of all the parties. I had to let go of everything that I could. And I had to let go of some sleep as well. And weekends were for just Unfollow. I used to reach home, I guess, around 7, 8. And then I used to work again after dinner. Like 12, 1, 2 in the night. I think when TechCrunch it was TechCrunch, when this thing was TechCrunch, it was 3 a.m. when I got the email, and I was awake, and that led to a conversation with Michael Arrington, which actually led to the thing being put on TechCrunch.
Yes.
So if I was sleeping and he had sent an email, I would have seen it the next day. It would have never made on TechCrunch.
Wow.
I think sleepless in the initial days.
Answer your question.
What do you focus most on? Like you said, you're a developer, so you focus on developing it or marketing it?
No, I've moved on to the business side of stuff. I used to do it. I haven't coded from the last 6 months. Nothing significant. I want to do it, but I've been into the business part of just something.
When you started it?
So I was the only one, and I used to do everything. I used to do the marketing part. I used to do the development part. Now when I come across people and they say I have a product, I built it. Usually I give them the advice that you built it for like 2 months, 3 months, now stop building it, start marketing. I think if you are a single person or 2 people, products are never complete. You will never think that this is a complete product. It's never complete. So maybe at a point if you don't see traction, stop building and just start marketing. That's a good way to go about it. The next 2 months, just market. Stop building, don't build features. Say it's coming soon. Some of our clients, users keep asking, when is this feature coming? I've been saying soon from the last 6 months. So you don't need to build everything that people want. And one more thing, when I've seen you build this first product with this X feature, and you see that it's not getting some traction, and you say the next feature is going to get traction, and then you say the next feature is going to get traction, and you just go on building features without any traction. I mean, the first feature in your product, the first stuff that your product is supposed to do, if that does not get you enough traction, I don't think adding more features is going to help you. So stop building up your point and start marketing. That is more important. Good products die because of lack of marketing, nothing else. It's good products are built by everyone. Just marketing, bad marketing that kills it.
Wow.
How do you identify the market? Let's say your product is only specific to people.
Right.
So you got the market, like Twitter is already built.
Exactly.
It is huge. So if someone is starting something, so how do they identify their market?
See, now social media is big and everyone wants to discover new stuff. Like I think recently I saw it on Facebook, there's this bitch strips where you see cartoon stuff. They're also a social product, so they went viral again. One of the ways, if there was no social media, the days when we used to use Gmail or anything, or for that matter when BlackBerry came in, what did they do? They wrote on email. Do you have a way for your users to just send emails about your product to all your friends? I don't think half of the products have a way to send an email to all your friends saying, I have found this product, this is good. So social media need not be the way to spread. Right? There are so many more channels of growth. You just have to identify one channel, crack it well. For us it was Twitter. For you it might be something else.
So you said that about 1 to 3% of your user base will take up some
Right.
paid. So actually, do you have like a monthly model to pay, or is that like people pay for each skill?
So we have a combination. On our mobile we concentrate on consumers. So we don't have monthly. Consumers are not really into monthly. We give them one-time payment options of like $5 a year, and you just make a one-time payment on mobile. On the web, we have monthly plans which start from $10 to $200. It's mostly used by power users and social media agencies and companies all over the world to manage their networks and also to spread themselves on Twitter and Instagram. So we have a mixed model. We have both yearly and monthly plans.
Did you test these plans like this? How did you decide mobile?
So I just decided one day that I'm going to put this on the web. It was $10 a year, and it stayed there for like 2 years. There was nothing, no thought into the value that we provide. You know? Then one day when I sat and I realized there is so much of value being given, why not make it monthly instead of yearly? So one fine day I just made it monthly, and I realized everyone still wanted to pay.
Okay.
So there was no survey, there was nothing done. I just realized that I would pay $10 a month. So I did get a lot of bad feedback, there was backlash and everything. It just happened for the first 2 weeks or something, and then people are all happy about what was happening. I think if you can give value to people, just charge it right. Don't be afraid about charging.
That's
$10 a month is okay. You should pay for something that helps you market yourself or spread yourself.
yes.
Yeah, talk about adding features. So when do you decide it's the time to add a feature, or what kind of features that you add?
Yes, so we try to be, very lean when it comes to features. We don't try to add everything that we can, and a lot of times we in fact kill features that we've got out. So what we do is, one, we use this product called as User Voice, which helps us put in ideas, helps any of our users put in ideas, and a lot of people vote. So that's a natural thing that you see a lot. A particular feature has got a lot of votes, so let's build it. That's one way, but you should not completely rely on that, because it's from people who they know how this product is and these are the features. But you as a founder also know that there are some stuff which no one has thought of and you have to get out. So that's, I think for us, it's totally gut feeling that let's build something like this which people want, they've never asked for it. And we get that out, and then we don't let it out to everyone. What we do is we target a small section of our users. For us right now, we target only our paying customers.
Okay.
So the first feature goes out to paying users. We see how the engagement is, how they're using it, and then we release it out to the free users. That's how we've been doing it. That works well for us. So when paying customers are not really happy about one particular feature, we sometimes kill it off. We don't get it all.
I think Facebook does that to all of us. They roll out specific features to specific demographic
Right.
thing.
So Twitter did that. Twitter allowed you to send direct messages to people you don't who don't follow you, and then they killed it. So I love that feature. So yeah.
Yeah, you could market better.
Right, exactly.
Yes, yes. Toby had a question.
Yeah, you mentioned that you got your first employee when you got the $40,000 system, right? So when do you advise? When do I get my first employee, and how do I convince him? This is a startup. I don't have enough money to pay him. So how do I convince him to come?
Right. I think I had enough money to pay him.
Yeah. So what if I don't have
Convincing
enough
was
money?
not that difficult. But when you don't have enough money, I think that's where friends come into the picture. But don't work with really good friends. Work with people who you know professionally, who you think okay, but you don't really engage with them on a personal level so much that when things go bad, you lose your friend. But I think the first few people who join you, it's a good option to have people you already know. It's easier to convince them because they know you. I mean, out of the blue, I go somewhere and tell them, I'm building this and it's going to change the world and I can't pay you. There's little chance that he's going to come and work with me. So at least I started this way. I started going to people I knew and I started getting them in. When that finished, I started asking these people who were with me to suggest people they know. So we just went to the second level. And now only now in the last few months have we started going after people who can just randomly apply and we don't even know about. But until a few months ago, we were only going to people who knew someone in our company. That's how we did it.
Do I have fast stakes?
Pardon?
Do I give them equity? How do I
Equity?
Do I give equity or what?
Yeah, so equity is important, but it depends on what part. I mean, at least in India, I've seen that a lot of people don't value equity so much as they value cash. But yeah, you have to convince them that equity is going to change their life.
Any questions? Yes.
So, how do you know your product is adding the value? So, to users, this is the one thing. You say, if I use this many to my product is finding value. Yeah, this is the only criteria to know that your product is adding the value.
See, as far as product adding value is concerned, for me, at least for my product, it was I'm one of the biggest users of my product. I use it for my own personal stuff. I use it to spread my own product. I use it to spread Just Unfold. I use Just Unfold to spread Just Unfold. I use it to increase my cloud on Twitter, and I see value in that. But if you're not the end user of your own product, maybe start having conversations with your early users. So I have a lot of people who were using Just Unfold when we just had like 5,000, 10,000 users, and they are on my chat and they keep telling me that they're using. Like I know a guy who started out using Just Unfold when I launched it, and he was just a small-time blogger. He earned more than $1 million now, and he spread himself using Just Unfold. So that is where you see the value. He does not mind paying me $200 a month. So I think then you see, when you see people growing. There's a painter in Canada who sells her painting using Just Unfollow because she spreads herself using Just Unfollow. She goes on Twitter, she finds the right kind of customers for herself, she increases her Twitter following, she tweets about the paintings and people buy it. So this is where you see value. She doesn't mind spending thousands of dollars on this product. So I think you should have that rapport with your first set of users. Have conversations with them, see if they're using it, they're liking it. But as a consumer thing, I don't think you will find immediate value for people. It's difficult to make money out of a purely consumer app right in the beginning. Then you should just think about how will you just better the experience, how will you just make it more useful to people. That's all. I think B2B this works. The money part. How much are they earning because of me? Or how much are they saving because of me?
Nice. Yes.
So you ever reach a point where you felt like the people who were joining in sort of stagnant and you were like, oh my god, now I got to change something, now I got to
Yeah, that happened quite a bit. In fact, I keep checking in our analytics, and there comes a point when you reach X number of users, and that every day it's the same number of users who are signing up, and then you have to really sit and change some stuff. So we keep doing that. Whenever we see there is a point where it's not really growing, I think I read somewhere where they say an ideal thing is if you're growing by 5% week on week. If you're not growing, then you sit and change your strategy, do something. But I don't let that graph just go straight. It should always go up, or probably you should go down and stop it and start something.
Nice. With that, I'm gonna stop this session, and he'll be around for like a little while, and you can ask more questions. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That was good.